Hello, thanks for joining me today at the Tiny Garden Challenge. All right, now, today we're going to cover containers. We've already covered the goal, the plan, your ambitions. We have covered the space with a focus on inside or winter and four seasons growing spaces. Now it's time to have some fun. Okay, the containers are where I start the fun stuff. And this is what I enjoy the most about container garden or tiny gardens is creating the container itself. So now this is a point where you can spend a lot of money if you're not careful, because you know most pots are reusable and they can last for many years. But I find it more enjoyable to see what I can do to not spend money on the container. So, what I'm looking for is functional and beauty without breaking the bank. And this becomes fun because I go shopping at thrift shops, I go shopping at yard sales for unique containers, and I recycle. And sometimes I make my own container. So, we're going to cover the various different ways of coming up with containers and what you need to know about the containers. So, you have a successful tiny garden. Okay. First thing is you have to have good drainage. Okay. So if your container does not have good drainage, we're going to create it. Okay. And there's ways of fixing bad drainage, and there's ways of compensating for bad drainage. But it is best to create good drainage in a pot that you've got to plant in. The next thing is the right size. So you're not going to put a apple tree in a container that big. Okay? You might start out that big, but it's not going to be happy. So you got to match the size of your pot to the size of the plant that you're going to grow. So the third thing to consider is the weight. Some of the containers materials are much heavier than others. If you're going to be moving the container around, then you need one that you can handle. So whatever your weight limit is, you have to keep that container underneath that weight limit if you're going to be moving it. How long is that pot going to last? Do you need it to last a long time? Or are you just going to be using it for a few months or a few weeks? Okay, so consider that when you're creating your container. And what is the temperature that container is going to be? Okay, so some containers get hot when the sun hits them. Some containers transfer the cold. Okay, so if you need a container that's going to moderate that temperature, that changes the materials that you're going to use for that container. All right. So, what types of containers are there? All right. Well, there's as varied as your imagination. So, you can purchase containers that are designed specifically for plants like terracotta or ceramic, plastic, metal. You can go to any garden center and find a container, but they can be expensive. You can recycle, and anything can be a recycled. Anything that is a container can be a recycled for a plant, or almost everything. Or you can create your own. And that's determined by how creative you are. That sky is the limit. So let's start with purchase pots or pots that are made specifically for plants that are of natural materials like terracotta or wood or koi. Okay. These are usually preferred for most plants because they breathe. And during the summer, they stay cooler, especially if they're outside. They allow some air exchange, which is healthy for most roots. And they're beautiful. Okay? But terracotta and wood can be heavy. Koi is short lived. The terracotta can break easier. Wood, depending upon the wood that it's made out of, can degrade over time. Okay? And most of them weather, and they do wick the moisture quickly. So if you've got a plant that needs to stay a little bit moister, then terracotta or wood might not be as good of idea. Okay, ceramic is another. You can either purchase these at a ceramic at a um, garden center, or you can recycle a ceramic. But ceramic is very difficult to create drainage in if it's not already there. Okay, so they're beautiful, they're durable, they hold the moisture a little bit better, a little bit more than terracotta or wood. Okay, but they also stay cool. They have almost no air exchange because they're a ceramic is usually glazed, and they're heavy and they're brittle. They break easy. The If you're going to put it in a spot and leave it there, a ceramic pot is wonderful. If you're moving it around, not so much. Okay. Plastic is lightweight, it's inexpensive, it's easy to handle and move, it holds moisture well. There's no air exchange. The soil can get hot in a plastic pot, and the UV degrade. So if it's outside, eventually that plastic pot breaks down. Okay. Then we're getting into things that are a little bit more creative. I, at one time, made concrete and hypertufa containers for plants that I sold. And these are made to your specifications. You can find some that are already made, but most of the time you're making these or having somebody else make them. They are relatively inexpensive, depending upon the cost of the concrete. Okay. They have good air exchange. They stay cool, and they are creative. You can do these. You form to the shape and size that you want them to be. So it's however creative you are, sky's the limit on there. Okay. They do take time. So the downsides, they do take time, and you have to cure them. So it's not an instant fix. So you're going to, on a concrete or hypertufa, you're going to have to cure that pot for at least 2 weeks, maybe longer, before you can use it. They have a tendency to crack in the winter with the freeze-thaw cycles. So they're not necessarily suited for overwintering. They are most suited for places that don't freeze outside, or greenhouses or sunrooms, someplace that's a little bit rougher, per se, um, a little bit more natural setting. Okay. And they are very, very heavy. So even the hypertufa, which is much lighter than concrete, is still a very heavy pot when you get it filled. Okay. My favorite is recycling. These are free. Okay. And I use just whatever I have, and I get creative with how I can decorate it. So I've got some things here that I recycle to for pots. Hey, my old coffee can. Okay. This makes a wonderful, fairly durable plant pot. Take that label off, cover it with something decorative, shells, maybe fabric, lace, and put a plant in there, and that makes a wonderful planter, and it's free. And then then it's just a matter of creativity. Now, there's no drainage there. So we're going to create drainage in that pot. Okay. When I create, but you got to be careful. Okay. When I create drainage in something like a coffee can, and this is completely metal all the way around. Okay. So that's better, or a plastic one. I take a nail and poke holes in it, hammering holes in it with a nail from the bottom into the container. Okay, because that puts, or I take a drill and I drill it but I drill from the outside in, so all the sharp edges are on the inside instead of on the outside. Because you don't want any sharp edges on the outside, because that's a good way to get scratch your furniture or anything else that's sitting on. Okay, but that makes a good pot, and that is about a gallon. Okay, this is a 2 pound or 1 pound 1 pound coffee can. That's almost a gallon. Okay, and that is a very nice pot for something like a mint or some salad greens. Okay. Outside, okay, this is not so suitable inside, and it might need some support. But I wanted a garden outside, and I didn't have enough garden space, so I recycled an old pair of jeans. I wore out the crotch in it, so I took a string, and I tied off the bottom, and put some potting soil in it, and I planted some lemongrass in it outside. Okay. So you can be very creative with recycling. Uh, and here's a basket. Okay, a thrift shop basket. Okay, fairly good size. So these are all things that eventually I'm going to put plants in. Okay, now the basket you have to be a little bit careful with, because you're going to have water coming through it all the way through the bottom. Okay, it is a short-lived solution, but you can certainly grow things in it for a season, maybe two. And how long the basket's going to last is going to depend upon what the material is made out of. Okay. And I sometimes make my own baskets. So that brings us to the plus side on that um, is it's free. You're taking stuff that you were gonna put in the trash, and you're gonna put it to good use. It's a low entry point, so this gives you a free container, and you get creative as you want with that. Okay, I've used coffee cans, I've used drink cups, I've recycled an old worn out pair of shoes. Um, I uh, Old plants, old stock pot. Okay, right now I've got some of my plants, some of my mini gardens are in old stock pots and old roaster. Okay, the pair of pants, plastic totes, milk crates. I had a plastic storage shelving unit that the storage part of it, the containing part of it, broke. So I pulled the drawers out, and I used those for mini gardens. Sky's the limit. Get creative. Anything that hold soil could be a mini garden. Okay? Make your own. This is one of the things I do all the time. I do a lot of it. It's low cost. This becomes what you want it to be. The shape, you create it. Okay? It's from the materials that you want. It's lightweight, heavyweight, Okay. Um, I make I make baskets out of grapevine and wire. So one of the things that I can use for creating a garden is a basket. So you take the basket and you line it with fabric, okay, or anything else that's going to hold the soil on the inside, and you've got yourself a little plant pot. So I have made uh, mini gardens out of old beehives. Okay, I make guide pertuva. I've used old pallets, so this all becomes how creative you are. So it's free. It's free. It's as easy as you want to make it to be, and it is fun. Okay, and if it's not free, it's at least low cost, depending upon where you're getting the materials. It does take time. You're going to be developing some skills. Okay, and the question is, do you enjoy the process? Do you enjoy learning the new skills? Do you enjoy creating? Do you enjoy experimenting? If it is, creating your own pots is definitely for you, but it does take time. Me, I use the baskets, I use the beehives, I make hypertufa of old pallets, pretty much anything that I can lay my hands on. It's going to hold a container is what I'll try. I will play around with and put plants in it. Okay. You know, the oh, I did use the old pair of pants outside this summer. It does not last very long. So if you're using something like fabric or maybe a tote bag, shopping bag that you don't want to use, don't want anymore, maybe an old purse that's worn out. Okay, those containers don't always last very long, but they are fun when you've got them, and they're better suited for outside than inside. So be creative, and I am going to give you some homework and a challenge. Okay, for today, for this week. So your challenge is to find a container that you're going to be happy with, that's going to be creative for you, that is free. So what can you come up with that is free this week that you can put a mini garden in? Okay. So are you going to decorate a coffee can? Are you going to recycle an old pair of pants? Okay. Do you have a basket? Okay. So free or maybe a buck or two. Okay. So we're going to bring this down to a low starting point to get started. So, all right, that's it for today. Now, tomorrow we're going to start talking about soil. So you got your container. Now you need to now we're going to talk about what to put in it. All right. Thanks for joining me, and let's go play in the dirt.